All right, this just in. U.S. jets have intercepted Russian jets over Syria. I want to go right to the Pentagon, where Hans Nichols is standing by with this news. Hans, what's going on?
Well, a U.S. official has confirmed that there was an intercept by U.S. jets of Russian jets over Syria. Just to give you a little background here, the Euphrates River, that valley, is the de-confliction line. Anything to the east or the north, the U.S. thinks of their skies, their territory. In the last month or so since they've had this agreement, there have been numerous incursions by Russian fighters, testing essentially American resolve. For the most part, there haven't been conflicts. What happened earlier today in Syria. 2 U.S. jets were scrambled. They sent up F-22. Those are the stealth fighters. And to dissuade the Russian jets from flying on what U.S. considers their part of the territory, they fired flares. Now, that seemed to do the trick. But, Ali, this gives me a sense that there's more escalation, that the U.S. is no longer willing to abide by Russian incursion of what they think of their territory. And all this is in the backdrop of what happens to U.S. forces, what happens to U.S. troops on the ground and in the air in Syria now that the Islamic State is all but beaten back.
Right, because that was just the announcement that came last week when the Iraqis said ISIS is out of Iraq, certainly in an organized form. They don't control territory. It doesn't mean they're all out. But this de-confliction line was sort of an agreement that said, because nobody really knows who's in charge and agrees upon who's in charge, so that our planes don't fly into each other and don't end up shooting at each other. You stay over there, we stay over here. It's not, it's sort of a semi-official thing.
Yeah, it was more formalized earlier last month. In November, chiefs of staffs got together and tried to hash this out and make it a little more clear now that a lot of the operations are winding down. We just saw President Putin make a surprise visit earlier this week to Syria. He was in the western part of the country. And what Putin said is that they're going to be withdrawing their troops. The U.S. officials haven't seen a whole lot of evidence of that. What they do see is Russian troops withdrawing from the eastern part of the country where they'd been fighting ISIS, along with the SDF, the Syrian Democratic Forces. Those are the U.S.-backed rebel coalition that has really defeated ISIS. What they've seen from intelligence is that a lot of Russian troops are moving to the western part of the country to try to shore up the Assad regime, as this likely gets into peace talks and the future of Syria. One final quick on ISIS in Syria and Iraq. They estimated, we just talked to an official the other day, about 3,000 ISIS fighters are still in mostly what they call the MERV, the Middle Euphrates River Valley. That just happens to be the demarcation line between U.S. and Russian planes. Ali?